Welcome back to Your Average Witch, where we talk about witch life, witch stories, and sometimes a little witchcraft. Meet Theresa Mariesa, an eclectic energy witch from Long Island. In this episode, she tells us about how she found out she's from a family of witches, explores the interaction of grief and spirit, and shares a fun story about a flying can of Truly. Now let's get to the stories. Hi, Theresa. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
I would love it if you would introduce yourself and your business and your practice.
Sure. So my name is Theresa Mariesa. I call myself the Eclectic Energy Witch. I have a business called Love From Within, where I do astrology readings. I teach beginners astrology. I'm a teacher of beginners witchcraft, psychic development. I also do Reiki. I don't know if I said that already. And just a bunch of things like that. I'm really into all things spiritual and just really diving into different avenues when it comes to witchcraft.
Where are you from? Where do you work from now?
Right now, I do classes in a couple of crystal shops. There's a CBD shop that I do some classes at and a yoga studio as well. When I do like my readings and Reiki and stuff, I do that just out of my apartment. I live on Long Island in New York. So that's where I am based.
I hear it.
Yeah, probably when I said Long Island, right? Yeah. I try so hard not to like pronunciate it like Long Guy Land, but if you live here, it just happens.
In my job, I get a lot of calls from people in the New York and New Jersey area, so
Okay,
it's
so you're
just
used to
familiar.
the accent. Yeah.
Do you have any socials that you want to share?
Sure. So I have my Instagram account, which is lovefromwithin_li. I do a lot of story posting on there about like different things that are going on astrologically. And, it's also my personal Instagram too. So you get a bit of my personal life as well.
Awesome. Now, what does it mean to you when you call yourself a witch?
Well, so I always knew that like I had a little something going on with me from a young age, but I never really like put a name to it. And then as I got older, I started really realizing that I could like see auras and connect with energy and that it wasn't something that everybody was doing and that it was out of the ordinary to have those feelings. So once I started realizing that stuff, I really started to dive more into like the paranormal field. And once I was in the paranormal field and I got to look into a whole nother life, I really started connecting with my now roommate, was already a practicing witch for many years. So he started to introduce me to crystals. And then once I was introduced to crystals and investigating the paranormal, I just kind of like shot off like a rocket and just
It was
felt
over.
like, yeah, I just felt like super connected to everything after that. I was like, what is this? But I loved it. I mean, when I was a kid, there's the age old story of like going into the creepy cemeteries and playing with the Ouija board and all of that stuff. And when I was doing that stuff, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. But, it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I really started to like connect the dots and realize, that not everybody can see a shield of color around people.
You mentioned your childhood. Do you have any family history of witchcraft or any stories from your childhood?
So everybody says that my grandma was definitely like a psychic. She loved all of this stuff as well. I actually have a book that I found in her closet that was like a guide to past lives. And I was like, oh, I wish I got the chance to talk to her about it,
Yeah.
She lived with us for a while, but by the time she lived with us, she was like on the decline, unfortunately. But my dad also was very intuitive. And I remember I was like 18 years old. And one day I came home from work and I just had like a really odd day. I like really saw somebody's full aura for the first time. And I was like, Dad, I think I need to go to the eye doctor or maybe like a neurologist. I think there's something wrong with my brain. I don't know what's happening. And he's like, Theresa, he was like, I'm sorry I didn't like mention this sooner.
By the way,
But our family, we actually, we see auras and we're empaths. We pick up on energy, and it's not uncommon for you to be seeing these things like in our family. And I was like, wait, so like not everybody sees like that. I know I said this, but not everybody sees that like white film. Like the biggest thing for me when I was a kid that I realized that I was like seeing something was when the teacher is standing up at the blackboard and you just start to like kind of like daze out because you're just like staring at them for so long.
mhm.
I would see like a white shadow like come over the person, and then sometimes it would be different colors, and I just thought that that was normal. Like I see that on trees, like I see it on a lot of things that just possess energy, so I just always thought that that was normal because nobody ever told me it wasn't. So when I saw the full color rainbow on somebody, I was like, oh no, it's getting worse. So that's when I was like, all right, I should probably say something about this. But once I learned that, I was already like watching like the ghost hunter shows, and Paranormal State was my favorite, so I was already like into all of those shows. But then I started watching one that was called Psychic Kids, and one of the people that were on the show was a younger kid that like saw auras, and that kind of just like snapped for me, like it was just kind of like a puzzle piece being put together, and I was like, okay. So then from there I started to research it a little bit more, and then I found a local group on Long Island, the Long Island Paranormal Investigators. They were already, a team for over 10 years when I joined. So they were very knowledgeable, and I loved all of them so much. That was some of the best 4 years of my life being in that group. And from there, I just really kind of learned who I was. I really connected to my energy body, and being like the psychic investigator in the group. There was another psychic investigator that we would just compare stories, and just like the validation of like being right and being connected was just, it was a lot of fun to be a part of that. So yeah, I had paranormal experiences also in my house when I was a kid too. So I'm used to being around the ghosts.
Now you said that you were dating somebody and they brought you in, sort of. Is this your partner now?
Oh no, just
And
my
is that how you
roommate.
met? Oh, okay.
Just my roommate. No, my roommate is one of my best friends. He has, we met, my neighbor who I grew up across the street from worked with him at Starbucks, and we met that way. But no, he's been a practicing witch for a very long time. My boyfriend is not a practicing witch at all. He looks at us funny when we do our witchcraft, but he just sits there quietly and lets us have our fun. He's not the biggest fan of sage, though, so I've gotten really crafty with herbs
Well, me
lately.
neither, frankly. It smells
Yeah.
gross.
I know some noses don't like it. I like it, but I also like to mix herbs. That's a really big part of my practice is I make my own herb mixtures. So I
Yeah.
love to do that. And now I have like over like 50 herbs that I just like, I'm in the middle of organizing. So that's fun too.
What would you say is your biggest motivator in witchcraft?
Honestly, I just really love the feeling of like being connected. I've always wanted to help people. I just always knew that in my soul, and I never really knew how or like what or where I was going to land with it. And I always thought that it was going to be one of my muggle jobs, as I call it, because I used to like work for a marketing company where I was like higher up in the ranks. Like I was a manager. I ran an office for a little while, and I thought that that was going to be it. And then, as I got more connected into my spiritual side, I kind of realized that I am here to be just like a guide and a teacher to people who want to start their path with witchcraft or just spirituality in general. And I just want to be there to like help them open the door. That's the biggest thing for me is I'm really into helping beginners. So for me, a lot of the time, when I'm doing craft for myself, it's really just for me to like connect with spirit and to just have those conversations. But I really love working like in a group of people. Me and my roommate, we both are like the head of a coven that we've created alongside with our friend Marguerite as well. So Jacob and Marguerite are my two friends. And, we just like to bring bring in beginners and people who are really interested in witchcraft, and we'll do like new moon and full moon ceremonies, or we will do wheel of the year ceremonies, and we'll just sit down and have like a conversation about where it comes from and the energy behind it. And then from there, we'll give everybody like a little part in the ritual, whether they're going to read the incantation for the elements, or something of that nature, and just to help people feel like they're connected to something and to just figure out what works for them. I love that. So that's really where my main focus is in the witchcraft community, is getting out there and just helping new witches find just what like works best for them, because it took me a long time to find what worked best for me.
Yeah.
So to be able to, and I'm still working on that, not gonna lie. So to be able to point somebody in a direction of comfort for them, is really a big thing for me.
Two-part question.
Okay.
I know you touched on it, but please tell me, sounds like you have a label for yourself. Explain the label that you have for yourself. And if you don't mind, share with us how that moves into your daily practice, and like, what do you do on a daily basis?
Sure. I call myself an eclectic energy witch. That title came to me because I love just all things spiritual, essentially. On my table right now, we have like 4 altars in the room that I'm sitting in our living room. We have our main altar, and then we have our table altar, which is where all of our statues and deities are. And then we have another altar on another table for my father who passed away. And then we have like a wall altar that has like the 4 elements and spirit with Jack the Green Man in the middle. So the eclecticness for me comes from all of the different people that I like to pray to, my spirit team, the deities that I like to connect to. Like I have the Mother Mary and Hecate sitting right next to each other on my living room table right now. And then Carnunos and Buddha right next to each other as well. So, I pick what works for me and the people that I feel connected to and called to work with. And then from there, I'll use herbs one day to, help cleanse myself spiritually. And then I have a sound bowl that I use another day. Like, I don't like to be set on one thing. Another day I'll, pull cards for myself, or dive into a progressed astrology chart. I like to have variety. So for me, like my daily practice would be to make a nice herb blend and just let it, cleanse myself, cleanse the house. Some days I'll pull cards for myself. Other days, like I said, I'll just dive into some astrology. I've been reading like a really great book on the nodes in astrology. So that's really been part of my daily routine recently. But I just try to make sure that I do at least something every day to make myself feel connected. Because especially during the pandemic, I was working full time because I work for a doctor's office right now. So during that time, I really didn't feel super connected. So since then, I have made it like a goal of mine to just make sure that every day I do something that makes me feel connected to my spirit guides, to my practice, and, just to keep learning and growing. Because I'm just the kind of person that I'm not a school person, but I would love to learn until the day that I die, like in my
Yeah.
own way, essentially.
What would you say is your first experience with witchcraft?
So I remember like when I was a kid, me and this neighbor girl, there was like some old cemeteries by our house when I was a kid. So we
It's
thought that it
always
would
a
be,
cemetery. Everybody's
I
starting
know.
out like that.
So this was like when I was like really young. Like I think I was probably like 10 or 11, like just like young and like clueless. We went to this old cemetery by our house. We live by Bethpage State Park, a really famous like golf course for like the PGA and stuff. So I live right around the block from that. So there's like a whole line of old cemeteries. One's like a family cemetery, and then there's a Quaker cemetery, and then there's a cemetery with no name on it. So we used to just think we were so cool, like going to like walk through those cemeteries. And the girl across the street picked up like a witchcraft book, And she's like, oh, we should go and like be witches. And I was like, oh yeah, let's totally, because like that was like, oh, so cool, you know. So we brought candles with us, and we just picked like some random grave, and we just put the candles on there. And I don't know, I don't even remember what we did, but that was my first time that I remember being like, wow, this is really cool. Who knew that I would end up where I am right now? Like, I would have never expected that. But, you know, I remember doing that. But in my adult years of doing witchcraft, the first time Jacob and I practiced witchcraft together I remember it was in my room. We set up a little altar on my bed with our new bought crystals. This was like the first time I bought crystals. And he made like a little protection sigil, and he put my name in it, and then he made one for himself,
Aw.
and we just did like a little like protection ritual together. And honestly, it just felt so amazing. Like, this is definitely like where I'm supposed to be, because, you know, I grew up Catholic. I've come from an Italian family, Italian Irish. My family is relatively religious. I wouldn't say that they're, you know, crazy religious. My mom is now, but I grew up with my dad coming from that side. My grandmother always wanted us to like go to church and everything. But as I got older, I started to learn about life, and important people around me started to pass away. I just kind of was like, I don't feel connected to this anymore. You know, I don't feel connected to this religion anymore. So for a while, I was just kind of agnostic. You know, I believed in
Mhm.
something, but I just didn't know what it was. And then as I started to connect with my psychic abilities more and dove into the paranormal access of it, and met my roommate Jake, you know, that's really when I started to kind of just get an idea of the beliefs that I wanted to have, and that, you know, I do believe in something, and that I do believe in spirit and all of that stuff. So, you know, it did take a little bit for me to come around to feeling comfortable with even working with anything after that. But then as soon as I started to really dive into my craft and learn what it was all about, then I really started to just feel the connection again, and to feel good about what I believed in, essentially.
What would you say is your, like, favorite memory of a witchcraft experience?
My favorite memory. That's one that I was trying to think of. Because there's just so many, you know what I mean? It's just, I love to do like big Wheel of the Year rituals. That's probably the most fun for me. I remember we did one for Maybon where we just kind of made like a really good cider, and we just hung out around the table, and we just, you know, chatted and practiced, and we did like an intention setting with apples, and like then we like ate our apples after, and it was just like a lot of fun. Like, I'm so into physical witchcraft. I like to do things that, you know, you get something, you know, I mean, obviously you get something out of witchcraft wherever you're doing it, but like where you have like a physical thing, you know, I like to do
Yeah.
like the jar spells, and I'm not really that artistic, but I do like to do like painting rituals and like stuff like that.
That's,
So,
like, the opposite of what I do.
yeah. Yeah, I just like to get my hands dirty, you know, I like to be hands on with things. So,
Yeah, mostly I'm just walking around blowing on stuff and thinking real hard.
hey, I do that. There's room for that too. That's more of my daily rituals. It's like, hey, candle, you're doing okay? Great. Here's some more crystals. Have a good day.
Do you have a favorite crystal to work with?
I am
And
obsessed with
why?
crystals in general. I'm a
Which
Leo,
one is your
so
favorite and why?
okay, I don't have one favorite. I'm so sorry to be
Top
that
3.
person.
Top 3.
Rainbow fluorite is number one for sure. Labradorite is number two.
Mm.
And I really love selenite a lot, or satin spar is one of my favorite as well. When I was actually really heavy into the paranormal investigating, I would bring like a huge selenite wand with me on our like really heavy investigations, just because I just feel so connected to the stone. And I really feel like, especially when it's a wand, like I use it for cleansing a lot, like, and I have like a huge wand, like one like that's like the size of my forearm.
Yeah.
So I use that for cleansing, and I literally just imagine like the energy going in black and coming out white. And I just love that. I love that so much, because I genuinely feel like that's how this crystal works, you know?
Where do you see it going in, and where do you see it coming out?
I see it going in the front, so it's like cut so that the bottom is flat. So I see it going into the front and then coming out the back as clear, like a white light
Like on the
or whatever
long
color I
face or
feel
like
that
the
day.
pointy part? Like on the long
No,
face
like
of it?
no, the long face of it. So the
Okay.
whole front and then out the back, yeah.
Okay. I just like to I don't know, I'm just interested.
Yeah, of course. No, definitely. Yeah, I'm actually holding my selenite wand right now. So, cuz like so I have like a little table that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace and it's like the perfect circular table for readings. So it's just kind of become like my workspace when I'm doing stuff like this. So, I have let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces, 8 pieces of rainbow fluorite on this table right now.
Tag.
From tumbles to towers to like big chunks. And then I have like a labradorite palm stone that was like one of my first labradorite crystals I've ever gotten. I have a citrine, 2 rose quartz, kunzite, and a pyrite. Oh, and an angel aura quartz and a lepidolite on this table right now. And also a crystal ball that my mom got me for my birthday one year.
This is making me think, what do I have all over the place?
I love
It's not
crystals.
crystals.
Yeah.
Not crystals.
Well, I also
What is
wrap,
it? What do I
wire wrap
have?
crystal jewelry, so I'm just, like, super into all of that.
Yeah, but I make jewelry too. I just don't what do I have? Bones? What
Yeah,
the hell is
maybe.
wrong with me?
Well, you said that
What
you
would you
use your intention to blow
Yeah,
on things a
I just
lot, so
have
you
lots
have
of
yourself.
breath everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yum. What would you say is your worst witchcraft experience?
Honestly, probably the Ouija board that I did when I was, like,
Yes.
15 years old, and that was even before I was a practicing witch, because so it was like one of those days out, where it was like a really bad thunderstorm in the middle of the summer. And I'm at one of my friends' houses. And, it could have been a coincidence. It could have been, but I really don't think it was. So we were in her room and we were doing the Ouija board, and I already felt super uncomfortable because I just knew like the stories and everything like that. So we both had our hands on the planchette and she asked a question and the lights went out. And I was like, you know what? I was like, this is not for me. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing this
The
anymore.
end. Goodbye.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they never went back again.
Exactly. And honestly, like I said, there was a very bad storm outside. So there is a possibility. But, at the same time, I feel like that was probably my guides being like, turn off the lights in this house so she gets scared and she does not go back to the Ouija board. And honestly, I know that the spirit board works for a lot of people. Just for me, it doesn't, not for me. It's just not for me.
I still have not touched one. I'm kinda hoping somebody brings one to Anahatas Purpose.
Just so you could play with it.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
feel
I can
like
get
maybe
myself cursed. Why not?
well, you're artistic. You should make your own.
Oh, yeah, but that's not the same as messing around with other people
That's
full of
true.
woo. Again, will not.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for Anahatas Purpose. I'm actually buying my ticket tomorrow.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. I got off of work, so I'm very happy. And yeah, I'm actually probably going to fly solo there. My friend Danielle might join me, but I have a lot of friends that are into the spiritual stuff. Mainly, most of my friends are. So when I told them what I was doing and where I was going, they were all like super interested in it. And I was like, you guys can come, but I'm like such a mother hen that I'm like, I just don't want to be responsible for you while we're there. So why don't we, if we're going to go, like, that's fine, but just know that I'm going to be on my own schedule. And they were like totally cool with that. So, anybody that comes, I told my friends they're all more than welcome to come with me, but just be prepared for me to be on my own schedule while I'm there, which is so not me. Usually I'm like, oh, what are we going to do together? But I really feel like I need to take this time
Yeah,
to really just connect back to myself. I've had, my father passed away earlier this year. So it's
I'm
just been,
sorry.
thank you. Yeah, it's just been not the easiest transition for me. I was very, raised me and my brothers. My mom's around now, but she wasn't around when we were kids. So it's nice to have my mom now, especially because we are so close now at this age. I'm 31, or I will be 31 in August. So it's nice to have my mom now. But my dad was my guy. So it's just been a little hard to just learn to live
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
that person.
Mhm.
Sorry to get emotional, but
You're allowed to have emotions.
I know, but grief is such a hard thing, and I have to learn to stop apologizing for it
Yeah.
because
Well,
it,
yes. Don't do
you
that
know,
anymore.
because, everybody, and it's not even the other people putting this on me, but I have a feeling that there's a timeline on grief. And I've lost people before, but my dad was definitely the hardest person for me to lose. Now I'm really learning that there is no timeline on grief. It's just whenever you start to feel better. And today I may feel great, but tomorrow may be a bad day. So it's only been
Yep.
6 months. It's actually 6 months is going to be Tuesday. It'll be exactly 6 months. And it's just weird, and I
Yeah,
just
it
want
is.
people. And, even though I do have that connection to spirit and I totally feel connected to him and I do feel him around me, it's just different.
Mhm.
So my biggest thing is like for people that are going through grief, like I just want, that's also another thing that I really want to kind of dive into in my witchcraft, like maybe like creating, like, this is just a new idea that I've recently had, like creating like a grief group or something
Yeah.
for people, like spiritual people, that we can like do stuff together to help with our grief, because I just feel like it's not something that's discussed enough. It's something that a lot of people want to just sweep under the rug and not have emotions. It's really easy for people to not have emotions. It's easier than to have them. So I really just want to like promote a world where you can be emotional and talk about the person that has been lost and mourn them and grieve them, because that's how we keep their memory alive also. So
So if I were to ask you which you wish was more discussed in witchcraft, would it be this?
yeah, I think that's definitely something, because a lot of people already are talking to spirit in the witchcraft community. So to include, the people that in your life that have passed on, like on your spirit team, and learning how to work with them from the beyond is something that I think is really important. But also just to learn how to just grieve every day, just to feel, not only just feel connected with the person that you lost, but also just feel okay within yourself for what you're going through. And especially for me, like I said, like, I have to stop apologizing for my grief, because it's not something that should be taken lightly or should be apologized about. It's just something that is. But we all have this, I don't want to put this on anybody else, but at least in my experience, this fear of being like annoying or too much, or, it's just not something important that you should be talking about. But at the end of the day, like, it's could be one of the hardest things that you ever go through, because it never gets easier. Just as the time goes on, it gets harder, because it's just more time that you're spending without this person. So learning to connect to them spiritually, I think, is very important for people that feel comfortable with connecting with the people in the beyond,
I
because
feel like
then at
there's a
least you still have
disconnect.
that.
I feel
What,
like
I'm
there's a
sorry.
disconnect there. I feel like there's a disconnect with people who say, "Yeah, I really work with spirit." At least when I look, I see this versus people mourning someone they recently lost. Like, oh, it's fun to talk to the ancestors. That's exciting and interesting to talk to spirits. But when it comes to actual death and grief and mourning and losing someone, it's like different.
Yeah, you don't really want to look at it because it hurts. It hurts a lot. So to talk to them and to try to connect with them without them being here is not always the most easy or fun in the beginning, but little things, when you start feeling them and seeing them around, it lifts you up. So the other day I was on the phone with my mom when I was driving home from work, and my parents were separated, but she's still grieving just like all of us. And she we were talking about my dad and just how, I can't believe it's coming up on 6 months and all of that stuff. And I made a wrong turn. So I was going to make a U-turn, and my father's name was Richie. And there was a sign that said Team Richie, like, vote for
Aw.
Richie or something. And I was like, see, like, just things like that he just shows me so blatantly, that he's there. I love those moments. It's hard, but it's just learning how to deal with him on another plane, essentially.
Yeah. Is there anything that you like or dislike about the witch community that you want to talk about or,
Sure.
or vent about?
I'm not a big venter. I mean, I am, but I don't really have many. I don't really have many qualms. I feel like, especially with the community that I am in, I feel very supported and loved by like the people that I have around me. There are two crystal stores that I'm like really close with, like the owners and the people that work there and stuff. And we all just like support each other. So I love that. And then obviously I have my coven. We all support each other there as well. I'm in a lot of groups on like Facebook and TikTok, all of that stuff. And some of the witchcraft groups I'm in are great. They, supply like really great information and all of that stuff. And I love that. And, TikTok can get a little crazy sometimes, but I mainly go on there for the comedy anyway. So, but honestly, I also, we know each other through the Witch Bitch Amateur Hour. And I honestly love that community as well. Like being in the coven on Facebook is great, and just being really connected. Like I just love the community of it all. That's really big for me. So I try not to look at the stuff that is negative or the bad stuff, because I just love to see just a bunch of people getting together and being comfortable with who they are, and just showing it out loud and expressing and showing their talents and all of that stuff. So I just love everything about that, honestly.
That's so nice.
Yeah. I'm a lover. I have I'm really into astrology right now. I'm teaching astrology at two crystal shops. Well, actually, I'm sorry, one crystal shop and a CBD shop, and then I have a private client. So I'm like super hooked on it. So I just want to say, like, all of the love that comes from me is my Cancer stellium, which means I just have more than 3 placements in Cancer. So, and then I have a Capricorn stellium as well. So I'm just like super lovey and gushy, but also like a super hard worker. You know what I mean? I like to get down to business. So I don't have time for the stuff that doesn't serve me, is essentially what it is, like I'll look at it, I'll see it, and then I'll be like, okay, bye. Like I'm going to go on this side where it's happy now. Just X out that page.
That's probably best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thinking back to when you were new and experiencing everything for the first time, what is something you wish a more experienced witch had told you?
Even though it is a super serious thing to practice, don't take yourself too seriously while you're doing it. Because even though like you want to make sure that you're doing the right things and, thanking spirit and doing the right things for you. You know what I mean? I feel like there's no exact handbook of what the right thing to do is. But as long as you're being respectful and, doing what makes your heart sing in the right way, then to just do it, you know what I mean? And not focus too much on it being perfect for somebody else to see it. Make it just perfect for you. And I think that's probably what I would, because for the longest time I was so focused on being like that aesthetic person. Like,
Yeah.
and now, like, sometimes like my altar gets a little dusty and that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I shouldn't be so focused on what it looks like from the outside looking in, because it's not that serious. It's your craft. And at the end of the day, you are the one that should feel comfortable with it. So I think definitely that would be my answer to that.
I had to laugh because it's something I need to tell myself all the time.
Yeah.
Now. Now I need to tell myself that.
Yeah, I mean it's a forever learning lesson, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of like what it looks like from the outside looking in, but as long as it works for you and it makes you feel good at the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah. Who would you say are your three biggest influences on your practice?
I would definitely start by saying my roommate Jacob, for sure. He really helped me dive into the community and really, learn who I am. He woke me up. And he says all the time that he showed me a crystal one day and all of a sudden I was like a practicing witch. And I was like, yeah, because that's what, it was inside of me. It just needed to be unlocked. And he unlocked that for me. So he was definitely really influential in my practice for sure. There's a psychic that I go to that I've been going to for many years. Her name is Susan Maxwell Trumbull. She was famous like back in the day, like in like the 70s and 80s for doing witchcraft. So she's like cited in a couple of books and stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking
She's
that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, she does a lot with like meditation and paranormal investigating and stuff. So she's really cool. I love to be around her, just like her energy. And she has like the purple door, and her house is just like this really cute, like little cottage. And like you walk up to her front door, and she has this beautiful Saint Michael angel like standing outside of her door. And it's just like goals, So I she is amazing. I love her so much. She really has helped me with like my psychic journey. I get read by her once or twice a year, depending on how my year is going, honestly. From the beginning, when I started going to her, I've been going to her for over 10 years now. She's always told me, I have a gift and it's a gift that needs to be shared. So she kind of really like opened up my confidence to, even just like the paranormal stuff. So that's the second person. And then the third person, I would say, I don't really know. I mean, those two are definitely the two people that have really skyrocketed me to where I am right now. I would say the third person would probably be my grandmother. Even though I know she wasn't around for my practice, I do feel like she really is one of my like lead spirit guides. I feel her around me all the time. I hear her voice in my head all the time being like, come on, Theresa, like do this or do that or, whatever. So even though she wasn't in the physical realm for me while I was going through that kind of stuff, getting into this kind of stuff, I really truly feel like she is the number one. She's the coach on my spirit team. So she's the one that tells everybody else what to do to help me. So definitely her for sure.
Who would you like to see on the show?
So there's a couple of people that I was thinking about for this question. There's somebody that I follow on Instagram. Her name is Jasmine, but her Instagram name is satin.saturn. She's super interesting. She's very into astrology. She does numerology. She pulls tarot, and she teaches a lot of master classes. And she also does like a couple of podcasts as well. But I just love her energy. I love the way she teaches. She's super knowledgeable. She has a really big following. And I just feel like she is just very creative in her approaches to teaching. So I would love to hear from her. A friend of mine, her name is Danielle. She has a company called Holistic Harmony. And she does a lot of Reiki energy work. And she's also a yoga teacher. She actually had made her own Reiki series. So she's a Reiki master. So she wrote her own Reiki book. So she has 3, they're not packets, but they're essentially just like little books that she's gotten published that she uses for her Reiki training. So she's like a super interesting person to talk to, very down to earth. And she has a lot of knowledge and information that she can share. So, she's on Instagram at, I can send you that later if you want, but styled_by_Danielle. And she is super cool. So I think you guys would really connect on that as well. I think that was it for the people that I wanted to suggest for the show. So Jasmine and Danielle are my suggestions.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
I would like you to give me a recommendation for something, anything at all. Anything not witchy, can be witchy, doesn't have to be, whatever. Food, snack, music, podcast, YouTube channel.
Okay, my suggestion would be, if you haven't already been, travel to New Orleans. I just got back. And it's not even like the witchy vibe of the place, where it does feel incredibly alive there. But just the experience of like the music and the culture and the food and nature there. I did like an amazing swamp boat tour. And just like the connection that you feel in New Orleans is unreal. Honestly, if I could deal with the heat there, I would move there
Hmm.
immediately. But I'm not a heat person. So I loved it so much. I felt so connected to the culture, to the people, to the music. And it was just honestly one of the most amazing, eye-opening trips of my life culturally. So that would be my suggestion to you, is if you haven't already been and you like to travel, try to get to New Orleans at some point.
I might have to eventually.
Yeah. Honestly, so what we did was we went for longer than a lot of people do go. We went for 6 days just because we wanted to do a lot of cultural stuff. We did like I said, the swamp boat tour, and then we did 2 plantation tours, excuse me, and then we did a couple of walking tours and stuff like that. Because my friend that I went with, she's a teacher, so she likes all of that stuff. And I just love history and I love feel like being in old places.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm super into Massachusetts. Like that's honestly on my list of places to move because just
You
also
have a
the
list of
energy.
places to move?
Long Island is not cheap, so I don't see myself living here for the rest of my life. So, me and my boyfriend, we have a list of places that we're considering to move. So, the first one on the list is North Carolina. But once again, I'm not a huge heat person, but they still do have the 4 seasons, and that's really important to me.
Wait, you want to
Um,
move to North Carolina?
Maybe it's on the list. The
Well, I'm going
second
to get
place
heat for
on the
this, but why?
I really love nature a lot. So to have a place that is like mountainous that I can go and explore is important to me because Long Island is just flat. It's beach and that's about it. So there are some hills, I mean, there's some very beautiful parks on Long Island. Don't get me wrong. I do love where I live, but I'm the kind of person that would rather be around a lake than an ocean. I want the view as opposed to, living in suburbia, essentially, which is where I live now. North Carolina, Massachusetts, probably around like the Boston, Salem area, and Gettysburg are my top 3 choices of places to move.
Hmm.
I also love Gettysburg so much. When I was in the paranormal group, we went there probably about 5 times to investigate. And the energy there is unreal, unlike anything you've ever felt before. It's just, I can't even put it into words to describe it, but we would investigate like the battlegrounds at night. And we've had some really crazy experiences there. So I just love the way that it feels. Like that's honestly the biggest thing for me. I'm all about the energy and all about the vibe. So I just want to feel where I live. I want it to feel alive. Where I live right now, it just feels very mundane. So the
Mm-hmm.
places that I'm looking into are places that I've been to that made me feel alive, that I can deal with the weather.
So not out here.
Well, I've actually been to Sedona and I loved, loved, loved Sedona. But once again, yeah, no heat, I don't, I'm not into like the big scary reptiles, like, or spiders. Like, I'm never going to go to Australia ever in my life. I've come to accept that.
Please tell me a story that you love to tell about
Hmm.
anything.
My brother is going to hate me for this, but
Yes! That's the best kind.
yeah,
When you
this
go,
is
such and such is going to be mad I'm telling this.
yeah, I'm gonna be like, listen to the podcast I did, but like cut out the last like 10 minutes. Don't listen to it.
The sound gets real weird.
Yeah. Okay, so my brother is engaged and his fiance's family has this really beautiful house out on the North Fork of Long Island, which is like wine country. They have this really super beautiful house right on the water. So one year, my brother was having a party, or I should say, his fiance Katie was having a birthday party there, and there's like like a channel, I guess, that the boats go through,
Yeah.
that you can like, you can swim in there. So we were swimming on that side, and across from it is a beach. So you can swim across and get to the beach. It's a little bit hard to swim because of the way that the water flows or whatever. So we got to the other side, and my brother was still on on dry land, and we were like, "Throw us over some Trulies." So he starts throwing the Trulies over to us, and he's good at throwing. He played baseball, he played football. So he gets two over to us fine. And we're all like sitting there like cheering, like, yeah, like that's awesome, cool, keep throwing them. Because there was like 5 people over there. No, even more. I'm sorry. There's probably like 10 people on the other side. And so he throws the 4th one, and it comes down and it smacks his fiance. And we were like, throw us over some Trulies. So he starts throwing the Trulies over to us, and he's good at throwing. He played baseball, he played football. So he gets 2 over to us fine. And we're all like sitting there like cheering, like, yeah, like that's awesome, cool, keep throwing them. Because there was like 5 people over there. No, even more. I'm sorry. There's probably like 10 people on the other side. And so he throws the 4th one, and it comes down and it smacks his fiance's cousin right in the nose.
Was she
And
not aware there were flying Trulies?
well, we were screaming and like cheering for him the whole time. So like, yeah, I think she was aware of it, but maybe she just wasn't paying attention for that one moment. She was completely fine. She just had like black eyes for a couple of weeks. So she was fine otherwise.
Oh,
Nothing was
no.
broken or anything. So thank God for that. But the look on my brother's face when that happened, it was something that will never leave my head. It was so funny. And like, it was okay. So at first everybody was like, oh my God, is she okay? And then once we realized she was okay, it was just, everybody just broke down and was just hysterically laughing, because it was just like one of those moments, and
Gosh.
I will never ever forget that. That was very funny.
Did she want to kill him? I would want to kill
No,
him.
they're actually good friends. Yeah, no, it's like, because that was also his fear. He's like, oh, now this girl, like, they weren't engaged at the time, but like he was like, oh, now
Aw.
Katie's gonna hate me, like she's gonna. I'm like, no, it's fine, like everything's fine. She, like, the cousin was like, it's my fault, I should have been paying attention, I knew what was happening. Oh
Yeah, I
boy.
would want to. Honestly, I would want to murder him.
Yeah, I'm sure
Whether it's my
it's
fault or not. I don't care whose fault it is. If I get hit in the face, I'm gonna want to murder somebody.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
Good
I
for
would too.
her. Good for her for being a good sport.
Exactly. Yeah, so that was just a moment that lives in my brain forever.
That is what I want. Everyone's weird brain moments. I want
Yeah.
them stored for perpetuity on the internet.
Love it. Love it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh,
This has
thank
been
you so
fun.
much for having me. Yes, I had a great time too.
Well, I guess I'll see you on the internet then.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Kim.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, Theresa, for coming on the show and for sharing that awesome story about your brother. I think about that more than you would think now. And it's that time again. I got another review. It's my 3rd one. I'm very excited. This one is from Reload Purchase Needed! And the title is Down to Earth. Appropriate since I'm a Taurus. Love this podcast. Like having coffee with friends. The presenter does very well with questions during the interview. Well, thanks. I really appreciate all the reviews, and they are really helping me out. If you want to help me out as well, and you want a chance to have your review read on the podcast, go to Apple Reviews and leave me a review. It helps me grow the podcast. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Your Average Witch. You can find us all around the internet on Instagram at Your Average Witch Podcast, Twitter at Average Witch Pod, Facebook at facebook.com/Your Average Witch Podcast, at YourAverageWitchPodcast.com, and at your favorite podcast service. Want to help the podcast grow? Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You just might hear your review read at the end of the next episode. If you'd like to recommend someone for the podcast, like to be on it yourself, or if you'd like to advertise on the podcast, send an email to YourAverageWitchPodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you when the moon changes.